Okay, it's good to
Centennials.
be with you all. It is Wednesday, October the 11th. Tim, I'm still not used to us doing this on Wednesday. We used to always say, it's Thursday, it's weekly briefing time. But hey, this is the mid-week pause that refreshes or resets or gives you a minute to pause and think. Basically, if you're new to the weekly briefing, it's a 30-minute chunk of time where Tim and I get with our team and we say, hey, what are we seeing happening in the industry? What are we hearing owners talk about? Or what's something that we see that we say, hey, people need to know about this. So this is the weekly briefing. We're going to spend 30 minutes today talking about, what was your title again, Tim?
Revive and thrive. It's
Thrive, thrive. Nice rhyme.
come on
So,
there.
all right. So part of this was prompted from a few things, Tim. We should give everyone context. I posted a very raw, here, I'm going to share my screen. I posted a very raw post last week. Okay. Do you mind if I read this, Tim? I think it's actually good
Yeah, go
context.
for it.
Warning, being very vulnerable here. Please don't judge. My biggest regret from my days running Impossible, we were always busy and very profitable until we weren't, not busy or profitable. And guess what? I freaking lost everything. After 19 years, it was devastating. 2 years of grieving, 5 years paying off the debts. Why I share this. I can't go back and change the past, but I can redeem my past by showing owners what I would have done differently. Run the factors method. Starting next Friday, Tim and I are going to help 10 owners avoid the mistakes I made. If this resonates, DM me and I'll help however I can. I got to say, it's been interesting because a lot of people did DM me behind the scenes on LinkedIn and also on Instagram and inside the community. And I think people were most of all just struck by, well, wow, I thought that story was just all rainbows and unicorns. And the answer was, it was great. And sure, we made a lot of money and we did well, but there was a transition towards the end that was really, really ugly. And as you know, Tim, I famously say, when I met Tim Thompson and I learned the method that you were teaching me and others, remember what I said? I was like, why didn't I meet you 8 years ago? Like if I
Yeah.
just, because that was when things really started to take off. And I basically at my studio, maybe people here can relate. We brought in bank. Like we were doing 6-figure jobs on a regular basis. And I look back now and I think, we were fortunate, lucky. Basically, we made so much money that expenses kind of just got figured out. Like it just kind of
Mhm.
worked. And we get to the end of the year and be like, wow, the government says we made this much profit. We don't see that much profit, but we did pretty good. Let's keep going. And really only had like one or two times over 20 years that we were slow. And then when
Yeah.
that year 19 hit and things had really changed, that's when it all caught up with me.
Yeah, I feel like it's easy when you're wearing the Richie Rich glasses, right? Where like every time you put the thing on, just like money, and you don't have to worry about you,
Is that
the
what those
the
are?
thought process is that the problems are solved. You start to develop this bias that says, I don't have any problems. Look at money's coming in.
Yeah.
Even though I'll say the more successful businesses, what fools you are to not manage even more because there's a greater opportunity to take advantage of it. And we often, that's the minute we let go and we're not taking advantage of the opportunities in front of us. Instead, we're saying, I've made it. This is the pinnacle. I'm good. However many millions that is. That's where, no matter where people have fallen, when I teach them how to make the decisions using the factors method, that they start really regretting some past decisions that they've made. Um, the other part of it is this, though. There is like no matter when it is. Joel, for you, it was 20 years. Some people it's 7 years. Some people haven't even started yet. It's already in crisis. There's always going to be a moment of crisis, and
Yeah.
this turnaround moment that says, "Hey, how do I actually put brakes on this thing? Turn around and follow the direction that the economy is giving me or the industry is giving me, instead of thinking I'm the leader." Because that's also this kind of crazy bias or bad filter we have is, look at me, I'm on top, everyone's following me until they don't. and then you are far ahead and you haven't made the decisions in the right time. So that
Yeah.
matching and checking it at your checking your revenue, looking at expenses, matching things so they are combined into constant decision making. That really is the job of business ownership. And I want to teach people that as soon as possible. I don't care if it's 20 years of business or 2 years in business. I want people to learn that as soon as possible because that is the greatest moment of you controlling your business and controlling your future.
So I'm going to draw a graph for something that I've seen happen to a lot of studios this year. It's not unlike what happened to me year 18 or year 19. So I've got my Sharpies. And Tim, you're gonna tell us what would you do in this situation, because everyone's gonna see my graph and be like, oh yeah, I recognize that. Okay, so this graph I'm drawing, the first line I'm gonna draw is income. And Tim, I'm actually make a little bit of an improvement over. Okay, let's go. So this is I. Oh, by the way, is my camera still blurry? Let me turn off
Oh
my.
yeah, that's good.
Okay, that's good.
I
Okay,
told
everybody
you you
say
can't just draw a frown on the page, Joel. It already looks like your revenue is a frown.
okay, so can anybody relate that maybe over the past couple of years your income, meaning gross revenue, was doing this, and then this year, right? Okay, it starts doing that. Now, in a perfect world, here's what I'm going to draw, Tim. In a perfect world, this is what your expenses would do. This is going to be your dotted line, Tim, that you wanted me to draw.
Oh yeah.
Okay, because I realized as I was sitting here, this would be even better. I'm drawing this in silver, so I'm gonna put expense with a
Yeah.
little subscript 1.
Barack says that his kind is a little bit more sharp than that. Yeah, right.
Okay.
So revenue, your expenses are always matching your revenue, right? So
Yeah, exactly. Right. What's the difference between those two lines? What are you going to call that? Margin?
yeah, that's the margin.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's like,
If I was looking at like we do these things called bottom line graphs. If I was looking at bottom line graph, we actually look at that margin often.
Yep.
Recognize
So,
the decision.
okay. So in your perfect world, everyone, as you're running your business, right? Let me get my fingers backwards here. Your expenses, which is probably your talent, your staff, it's your employees and your freelancers, they cost less than the money you're making. So you're doing great because you're making margin. And then when business turns, you're like, oh, that's okay. I can scale and let go of some freelancers. I can even lay off a few people if I need to. That does not happen. So Tim, first of all, why is that so freaking hard? What is the mindset of the creative business owner that does what I'm going to draw on this graph?
Yeah. So what you're showing there, that the example, by the way, is what I call guaranteed profit. When your expenses are less than your revenue, you are guaranteed profit. So managing expenses to match revenue or be able to look forward ahead at what revenue is and be able to manage expenses would be ideal. The reality is we often have expenses that we really, really like. We call them employees or creative directors or salespeople or whatever. And retaining this knowledge, retaining the body of people is how our business functions. And we really buy into we need this body of people in order to have a functioning and successful business. But if revenue is taking a dip, then something's wrong. And we need to understand what that is. And we have to correct for it. But Joel, you know this. Everyone wants to say like, no, it's just sales. It's right around the corner is what I hear. Bet the next project might just be right around the corner. And I have to point out often like, well, right around the corner would mean it takes 2 or 3 weeks to land it. Net 30 revenue, you get split 50-50. We're not going to see the cash right around the corner no matter what. And when we start aligning revenue and expenses in the timing, it's more obvious.
Now, I will say, because there's a few people here that are struggling with this right now. I know this very much personally and intimately. Here's what I used to do. This is what I did, and this is what some of you can relate to. Okay, and I drew the other line in black, Tim. I'm sorry, I messed up your formula. Okay, but do you see this line E2? Okay, you're hiring, you're hiring, you're hiring. You're still hiring. You're still growing your expenses even after your sales have gone down, because you're on such a run. You're like, oh, we can't lose. And then you suddenly realize, whoa, things have stopped. But you know what you do? You say, oh, but I've built this team and I have these people and they're so valuable. And you know what? They are. I'm not disagreeing with you. But then you say, I'm just going to hang on and not hire anymore. And then you reach a point of crisis. Okay. And you reach this like, oh my God, this area between what on this graph here, if I was charting this, what is this, Tim? This is some sort of loss.
Yeah, that's lost for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's big time. It's a lot of money. And then you suddenly go, oh shit, pardon my French. You now are like, I got to let all these people go. And now, in my case, I went from 25 people down to 14, down to 12, down to 10. And it was not really sustainable because everyone that was left was kind of like, this isn't the company I know and that I love. And these are where are my teammates and where are we going and what's the future? But here's the thing I know this, what would we call this inflection point right here, Tim, where expenses are actually going higher than income or revenue? That's a day. Like there's a day when that actually happens.
Yeah, there's a crossover day. And what's interesting, if you were to, I mean, honestly, this is like seventh grade math, but if you measure the area of the geometry of both polygons, the one on the right, one on the left, you realize that your expenses are greater than the gains that you had before. You didn't have a margin going into this loss, and then you were slow on correcting the loss, so you lost even more. And here's the critical problem, right? Revenue has been dropping, so the opportunity to correct it is also dropping with it. And you have to do a drastic drop. But Joel, to make up for lost time, you have to double the margin that you didn't have before when you were thriving. So
Right.
a lot of us, when the going is good, we don't steer the ship then. It's like the going is too good. If I could by 3%, 5% move the E2 line further down from the income line and increase the margin, then I would at least have a greater pad. But even more important, that's not how we solve the problem. We don't have to solve the problem because we have in the savings account. We have to have visibility of when those tipping points are. And
Yep.
here's the critical moment where most people fail. We have to decide. We have to start making a decision looking forward on who we are going to become, not who we were. And man, those
Not
are
who we
not
were.
fun days. Yeah.
So that's the mindset, right? But we were this, right? Because see how we're making all this money here, where this is profit, right? Margin, whatever
Yeah.
we want to call it. And what this usually happens is this usually piles up in the checking account or a savings account or something. And then what happens when you cross this threshold? Now you're burning that money. But you
Yeah.
think, oh, I have a couple 100,000 in the bank. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. And then, like me, I remember one day my financial controller came to me and he was like, oh, that $400,000 savings we had is gone. And now I'm not sure what to do because in order for us to continue, I have to borrow against our line of credit.
Yeah.
Holy cow. So all that profit is gone. I've spent it. That was mine. As the business owner, I mean, let's call it what it is. That was my money, but I burned it just waiting and hoping and waiting and hoping. So how do we see this? How do we see it and make a decision? That's what we want people to take away from today because a lot of you, I mean, if you've had a year like this, I don't know if you want to chime in the chat or maybe just be quiet and we can quietly seethe and rant together that this happens and when it does it's really painful. So
that is the year people are having. When I've been meeting people consistently, for the last, I'll say 6 months, because it took Q1 for people to start asking for help, and they're still after 9 months beginning to ask for help again. It's interesting. The first words that people will say to me is, "Well, last year I was," and then fill in the blank, $1.8 million. This year I made 100,000 or whatever. Like there's a margin between who I report to the one where they realized, wait, like you point out, it might be too late for some.
yeah,
And I don't mean late in that their company's going to completely fail. What I mean is to take proactive measures in solving the problem. So we have to, at this moment, be reactionary. And I don't like that. The way we often solve the problem is being proactive. That's what the cash board's about. That's what the factors method is about. That's what the split are about, is programming out the future. So every single project, every single day, every single week, we're always building towards the future that we want to have. Regardless of revenue drops, we're going to match the expenses to revenue. In this moment, it's a reactionary moment that we have to say, because this is now true, what do I do?
Right.
And I think I've used this example before where I've been on calls with company that when I began a conversation with them, you know, over a 2-month or 3-month period, when I started a conversation with them, they said they were in trouble. By the time they actually got me on the line and started working with them, their $500,000 line of credit was all used up. And then that's when they decide they want to call me. Man, I could have used that $500,000 in so many ways to grow, right? But
Right.
still, we can keep them in business. We can, revive and then eventually thrive. We just have to be future minded. So one of the first things, Joel, is that I think you were pointing to is that when you go from 24 employees down to 12 employees down to 4 employees, the biggest thing you're losing there is confidence. You're losing confidence in your business. People can read that confidence. Your employees are wondering, is there a future here? We used to be 24. Now we're 12. We're going to be 5.
Right.
I'm afraid I'm the next hit, or I'm afraid I'm attached to a dead ship. How do I do something different? And confidence is the number one tool we have to put in place. I honestly feel like one of the first things I am to people is a believer. I know you can do it. I've done this before. I know you can do it. You have talent. We can make this happen. Let's believe together. Let's start cheerleading our squad towards something, and let's dream the future of who we actually now are and make that possible and teach you how to thrive within that.
I am drawing something here in case people are wondering, wait, what do they mean by that? Okay. I'm going to use a dollar sign. So forgive me for those of you that use other currencies. Hopefully the dollar is ubiquitous enough. When Tim talks about the splits, here's that's a pretty good diagram for like on the fly here.
Super good.
Okay. Sorry, my camera's a little blurry. I'll hide my face so it doesn't do that. So when money comes into your company, what we do is we split it, right? And it might be a little less than half, but a chunk of the money goes to the creative costs. The chunk of the money goes to the company costs. And guess what's in the company costs? Profit. Yes. So we call this the split because what we do with the creative costs is we give that money to the producer, to the project manager. I want you to notice we're not dealing with prices. Okay. So we're not dealing with funny money or margin or pad or markup or running this crap. It's just, hey, producer, you have whatever, $50,000 and the company is keeping 50, go produce the job. That creates enormous benefits that I didn't enjoy in my day. And then I don't have a good little diagram for what a cash board and a cash runway shows us, but
Yeah.
the way that this works in concert with a cash runway, it's like a cash flow report, but what do people see on that would give them visibility into, where's my little chart here?
Well,
Okay.
let's just say this way. You clearly have to start
So
making
you see
decisions.
this coming.
Yeah. You have
'Cause
to
I wanna
start
see
making
this.
decisions into your future. So you have to be able to project your expenses that you
Yeah,
haven't yet accrued.
I want to see that point. I want to see it way back here.
Yeah. Yeah, because mathematically I can project forward and know when those items cross a month from now, 6 weeks from now. And because I don't want that to happen, I can start making choices now, therefore not spend the money and hold back and correct. So when the revenue drops, I can match my expenses to revenue because I've been projecting it. I've been looking forward to that number.
Meaning you could potentially follow, your expenses could follow that silver line more.
That's exactly what the factors method does, Joel. Because
Yep.
I'm not. Should be the assumption that I'm using forensics and I looked backwards at this information. But imagine the same set of data projecting it forward with future projected costs. A huge element of the factors method implementing in production is being able to look forward at the productions that you are going to implement and recognize that's greater than the revenue I'm going to make. I need to not spend that money, or I need to go get more revenue from the client that's asking me to overperform based off of the budget they gave us and reconcile that. And when we had TJ on just a few weeks ago, I think he said it on there, but he said like this year alone, he knows there's at least $50,000 he would not have asked his clients for if we weren't projecting those those expenses. Not to mention 100% of the production budgets he's been doing are all profitable because he's recognizing the limit he should stop spending to match the revenue and pull it back and meet that.
So for people here that are running a roll up, let me actually show one because I want to ask you a really tough question. So can I put you on the spot?
Of course.
Okay. I love that you say yes to that because, okay, here's an example roll up. All right. All this is a bunch of project budgets where the key data is rolled up onto one report, right?
Correct.
And you can see, here's the job. Is it active? What's the total bid? And then there's this allocated direct, indirect. So think of that as creative versus company costs. And then we track how much have we actually spent? What do we estimate the future costs are going to be? And then we see sort of like a final estimated profit.
Yes.
Now, here's the thing that some people may be experiencing this year is that your projects can be profitable, but your company might not be.
Right.
Why does that happen?
Well, because you're lying to yourself is what happens, right? You basically have a production team that is telling you, hey, I didn't overspend on this project. I just didn't take staff employees and allocate them to the project. We had people sitting around doing nothing.
Right.
Or we have people that are changing the rates, using we call it utilization, the using of the individuals that we've programmed into the year. So we have to have visibility on the resources that we're using. The crazy one that I see people do is if I were to make a cost rate for an employee, $500, and then they know that they can go get a freelancer for $450. Joel, they go get a freelancer and leave the staff person not busy.
Right.
Because the production budget looks good. So we need another line of visibility on our team, which is a really simple weekly team meeting, weekly resource meeting, and saying who's busy, who's not. Let's keep them busy. And if week after week an employee is not busy, you're recognizing your production team is telling you, I don't use this person. This person's not the most useful person. They're either too expensive, don't have the talent I need to. Even just like the industry shifted and their specialty they have isn't what's being used right now in the marketplace. Those are the beginning of that future visibility that we're looking at, that if we recognize it soon enough, we can project, correct, build. We don't have to lay people off. We can do other things with them, but we have to have the runway to do it.
Something else some of you may be relating to this year is maybe your income wasn't going up, but maybe when it started going down, it wasn't because the project budgets were going down. You're like, we still won the job. We still won the next job. We got the next big one. Like these are big jobs, but the pace at which jobs were awarding and the pace at which clients were paying slowed down.
Yes.
And that's a big thing I saw happen this year was everyone that's running a roll up was saying, hey, all 8 of my jobs are basically on budget. So, the company is strong. We're healthy, but we're only doing half as many jobs and half of our people are not busy. And that is an unprofitable company and you're heading towards that cliff. So we need the two together, right? We're looking at that cash runway and seeing the numbers called, okay, we run out of money normally in 16 weeks. Wait, why are we running out in 8 weeks? That kind of a thought?
That doesn't necessarily have to lead to a company struggling. But what happens is the pattern at which we're used to paying out and the pattern in which we're receiving has created a cash gap. I want the client to cover that cash gap. I don't want my own personal resources to cover that cash gap. So the way I have to go through my sales process, the way I pitch, the way I build, and in a turnaround moment, right? Because that's what we're talking about here is, hey, when that does happen and I have to do something different, what's my turnaround look like strategically? How do I go after that, having a different conversation with my client? That's the work we need to start putting into our bidding process, even way back to our pitching process of recognizing the opportunities that we often embedded in a project, split 50-50, that we can say, oh, this beginning, we're going to get some money up front, and then we'll split the remainder 50-50. Or change the terms of my live action elements portion of my budget from my post-production and get paid differently for those requirements. Yeah. It's not that difficult of a conversation to have. And think about what we're really trying to do here. We're not necessarily asking for more money. We're just asking for a different timing from our clients. When I
Yeah.
when I do turnaround work with businesses, it's one of the first things I really deal with is the time element. How soon will we get the cash in? How soon do we have to pay people? And what is the language we have to put in place? Early on, Joel, this is, I even think before I started working with you. No, I'm pretty sure it is. There was a company whose employees walked out. It was that bad. They not get, this is the second payroll they're missing, and they disappeared. They all walked out.
Wow.
They still have projects to deliver. They had no employees. They hadn't paid their freelancers because the way the cash flow management was happening, but they were owed money from the clients. So there was money basically sitting in the books that they hadn't collected yet. There's money that they owed people. They weren't not matching the timing of it. And in 2.5 weeks, just to realign, again, what I did is I brought confidence into it. I told people how we're going to do it. I put a roadmap and plan in place. I shared that with transparency, the vendors, the employees, and the clients. So everyone was on the same page. We slowly worked our way out. That business is still working and thriving today. That is 17 years ago. I still know those business owners. Still go out to dinner with them when I get a chance, because there was just simply only timing that needed to be solved there, not creative, not business decisions, not even the bid prices. They were asking the right amount of money. It's just that they weren't matching that timing. So that confidence part is a huge part so that I could negotiate that. Then next thing I say is first things first. Let's understand what you do have. Let's understand what decisions you can make. Forget the old decisions for now. What can you make moving forward? And what should you do moving forward? So that first things first. And then lastly, you have to actually make the decision. You can't be stuck with analysis paralysis. You can't have wishful thinking, and you can't put your head in the sand. We have to look at them with clear visibility, make a decision, and then go with it.
I'm going to
This case, you
say,
stuck with a decision, you have to make it forever, right? It just gets you started moving out of this.
I like the idea of looking at a cash runway. That's kind of my name for you call it a cash board, but it's the same thing where you're looking at your income and expenses playing out week by week by week. And I love the idea of drawing a line in the sand where if I'm talking to an owner and I say, okay, look, see this, right? We're going to, things are looking tough in 8, 10, 12 weeks or whatever. Let's color this week and just say, we don't have to decide today, but when we get to that week, we make the decision. We don't wait until we've actually run out of money or until this other bad thing happens. Like, we're going to give ourselves 2 or 3 weeks to think about it, to mull over, to explore our feelings. But on that week, we make a decision, because otherwise we're just fooling ourselves. The other thing I was going to just mention, Tim, is I'm almost on the verge of putting out a call to arms for our industry, meaning the studios and production companies out there, to come up with this, to
Yeah,
create,
right.
okay, to create a rationale that we can use so that when companies say, oh, we might, we're not going to award this month, we're waiting till next month. Oh, we're going to put the project on pause. We're going to delay a little bit. Oh, we need to, like, it's okay. I get it. Business happens, but we need to have some sort of a policy that we can all refer to that says, hey, as agreed or as discussed, we abide by the such and such industry standard. Therefore, right, there's some sort of decision point there where the client can say, well, I'll pay you the kill fee, or we'll put the project on pause and then pay you X to resume the job. There's any number of things, but we've got to start creating some sort of common language around this, or else these companies are going to get clobbered like this again and again and again.
I like that as a possible influence play. What I like most about that is just visibility to younger agencies who haven't yet been stuck, and to correct a problem they don't yet have. I would still, as a consultant, say, don't lean on that. You have to be a business manager. You have to actually implement that, and you have to enforce it. But a cancellation policy is very important, very, very important. It might actually be one of the tools you pull out in a moment of crisis. You just say, I'm not going to follow through on a project I'm going to definitely lose money on. I'll cancel the project.
The thing I like about this timing idea is I want everyone to think about this thought, that when a client says to you, what's the cost to produce this, right? And you give them a price, that you say, oh, we can start next month or the month after next for this price, which is higher. And then you say, or we can start on it now for this lower price based on our resources and our availability and so forth. You're creating an understanding called, oh, if we get the better deal if we start now, yes. And if you pause, delay, cancel, whatever, then you pay that extra
Totally.
amount. Okay, it's different than discounting. Okay, I'm not discounting. So just note that.
You also said it there too. A bad behavior is this idea of putting a project on pause and then eating the expense the client put out there because they didn't keep up with the obligation.
Right.
It's an obligation that you have to your industry, to your clients, to your employees, and to yourself is to know what that timing is and basically make promises and keep it. Your clients need to make their promises and keep it as well. If we have a deadline, we meet that deadline.
All right, here's what I'm going to encourage everyone because we need to wrap it up here. So if you are not a member of our private community of owners and you're qualified, please jump in, take advantage of it because there are a lot of owners there that are wrestling with these issues. And Tim and I and our team, we're in there all the time. We're constantly sharing about this stuff, right? The factors method and the spreadsheets and the cash boards. And Tim, you've built what, 50 cash boards in the last year? Probably.
I'll be lucky if that's all I did for sure.
Yeah. But the thought is this: we give this knowledge away for free. If you want to jump into an accelerator and we help you, right? We do that. That's a paid thing where we're going to help you actually build it if you don't have the time. But we just know that this is something everyone needs to learn, master, implement it. So we are happy to share this knowledge. So jump into the community, join, take advantage of it.
It's my mission. We exist so people can thrive in business, life, and career. And we mean it by saying, if this is what holds you back, please take it. We want you to thrive. We want you to know what it takes. And if you're experiencing a moment of decline and you know that there's a moment of turnaround, we have a community of people that will give you that confidence. We can give you that confidence. We have tools that give you visibility to start making those decisions. But in order to make that future, you need to know what your future is and to be open-minded, eyes open, and knowledgeable about what it takes to get there. That's the real key to it. This might just be one of many times in your career where you have to deal with this. So learn it now so that in the future, when the time comes, we are more efficient at solving these problems.
So on Friday, you and I are going to take a group of, I think, about 10 owners through this process. If anybody wants to jump into that, of course, DM me or my assistant. And if there's room, we're, of course, happy to have you. But at a minimum, jump into the community and take advantage of all the free stuff that's there. So you don't get stuck like I got stuck in my 19th year.
No more.
Well, Tim,
no more.
Thanks for sharing your thoughts. There was some good stuff here. I like my little diagrams. I hope they were helpful to somebody out there.
I appreciate them. I think that I look at grids and people's information all the time, and there's something so great about having visibility on how this thing really works. So good job.
Yeah,
and you have nice handwriting, so you win.
This is where I say, like Jack Nicholson, what movie was it? Don't be like me. Don't be like me. Yeah. All right. It's a movie quote. All right, everyone. Thanks for being part of this week's weekly briefing. We appreciate everyone here showing up and being part of this conversation. I'm going to go cruise through the notes. Sorry, we did not get to respond to more of them personally and directly, but that's what the community is for. So if you're not a member, jump in there and start a conversation. That's what it's about. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.